Hi, I'm Hank Hughes. I served 2 tours with the 173rd Airborne in Afghanistan. And basically now I make movies. It's a really wonderful job. And the last movie I made was about my interpreter. My interpreter, I would say in boots, she's probably about 5 feet tall. Her father gave her a man's name, but she has this really, I would say, classic woman's story of who went through this divorce and then finding herself. It just so happened that the way she found herself was on a mountaintop with 40 infantrymen in Afghanistan. So on patrol, she would carry a dog's leash. And on the other end of that dog's leash, it was connected to my body armor. See, basically what had happened on one of these patrols, we took fire, and she fell down. And what happened was we ended up running hand in hand to this like hole in the ground. So we jumped in this hole, and it turns out this hole was actually a collection point for fertilizer. It was legitimately a pile of shit. So we sat there laughing about it for a moment, but I realized I would need both my hands from this point forward. And so basically we came up with this idea of a dog's leash. That way I would have my hands and she'd be able to communicate for me. She's a really incredible person. And I think that it's a story that's perhaps not told quite often. And it's really my pleasure to be able to kind of just share what kind of stories come out of our experiences. I can say unequivocally that I love this woman. It's not a romantic thing at all. It's one of a deep admiration. And this should be a clip.
I love veterans. Talk about underselling. He finds out in 4 days whether or not he's shortlisted for the Oscars for that film. I also love Got Your Six. Last time they asked me to speak, they asked me to follow the First Lady. And today they asked me to follow 6 or 7 veterans who are all total badasses. And I'm up here in like blue saddle shoes. We launched Six Certified in January in Washington with the First Lady. And the premise was essentially, I went to Got Your Six and said, Hollywood types like getting awards and medals for doing things, so just give them an award for telling accurate stories about veterans and they'll start telling accurate stories about veterans. And for the last year, I've been trying to figure out how to synthesize why this is so important. And this is what I've come up with for this month. Imagine for a second that you are a liberal, weenie Hollywood type who drives a Prius and wants to vote for, let's say, Bernie Sanders. However, the media keeps telling everyone you want to vote for Donald Trump. And because of that, you can't get a job in Hollywood liberal land because they think you want to vote for Donald Trump. This is essentially what we're trying to solve. Because what we have is we have 250,000 veterans who are the best trained, the most motivated, loyal, duty-bound, coming out of a government organization that we funded to train them to be all those things, and then as survey after survey after survey shows, we see them as a cost instead of a benefit. It's the most unbelievably backward thing I've ever heard. After World War II, the economy exploded on the backs of veterans coming home. After the first 5 years of the Afghan and Iraqi wars, our economy tanked, despite the fact that all of a sudden we had nearly 4 million new trained people entering the workforce who were better trained than the people that were getting jobs. But we thought, no, they're all coming back with PTSD, or they've got hero complexes, or whatever other excuse we'd come up with. The thing is, though, is that we, the media, the people who are putting stories out, we have a responsibility to do more than just empty platitudes. Because the thing is that the subtle power of what you put into stories, what you put into television shows, what you put into movies, really affects change. If you look at how many women were getting mammograms prior to a 4-year push to put that into storytelling and television show, you're looking at a 10-fold increase. You're looking at a drop in the rate of breast cancer and the number of people catching it in stage 1. Look at the LGBT movement. Look at pre-Will and Grace. Look at it post-Will and Grace. This isn't one of those things where we're patting ourselves on the back for doing something we didn't do. Harvard studies, Columbia studies, Yale studies all show that that is the #1 way of affecting change in the populace. And yet, what are we doing about it? So we launched 6 Certified with a basic premise that if you did one of 6 things, that you would be qualified or eligible to potentially to get a certification. I wrote these and I still have to read them. It's tragic on a number of levels. If you research or consult with a real veteran. You gotta love that when you do a show about doctors, you have 6 doctors on staff so that your actor doesn't get out of Emmy contention because he was making up words. But we don't have veterans on staff. You have to cast a veteran. And I don't mean cast a veteran to just play a veteran. I mean cast a veteran, period. Perfect example, Rob Riggle is a veteran. He'd be a good person to cast. I don't represent Robert, just incidentally. If you hire a veteran to work on the crew, if you portray a veteran character accurately, which doesn't sound like that big a deal, except when you think about the percentage of veterans that are actually coming back with PTSD versus the number of veterans that are portrayed with PTSD, the numbers are ridiculous. 90% of veterans on camera are portrayed as having some form of mental disability due to their service. I challenge you to Google what the actual percentage is and try to rationalize that when you watch, I'm not going to name names. Tell a veteran story. In general, just tell a veteran story. And last but not least, use a veteran as a resource. I'm not even talking about hiring them. I'm talking about just calling them and asking them for their advice because, frankly, they're probably better at, life than you are. So in May of this year, we announced the first 6 certified films. Some of them are incredibly obvious, and some of them weren't obvious, but I thought did an incredible job. American Sniper, obviously, one of the biggest movies of the year. Amira and Sam, which if you haven't seen, you should. Dancing with the Stars, which annually now does an incredible story telling those stories. Hawaii Five-0, as was previously mentioned, which is a great example. The Night Shift. And the example that I think probably best exemplifies what we're talking about, Modern Family. Now, I don't know how many of you realize this, but the Jay Pritchard character played by Ed O'Neill is a veteran. And the way they portray that is not that his whole life is defined by being a veteran. It's the subtle character strength that he has that comes from his service, that defines who he is without defining who he is. That is the type of storytelling that affects change. That's the type of storytelling where you think to yourself, when I'm hiring somebody, do I want somebody who inherently chose to serve and chose duty and honor and responsibility and teamwork every single day because it was life or death, and they volunteered to do that? Do I want that person working for me, or do I want the kid that showed up in flip-flops? There's 2 things that I wanted to end with. First of all, if you are in the film business, you want to learn more, go to gotyoursix.org. The second thing is, and I've won some money because of this, because I didn't think there was any way that the non-veteran getting up was going to be the person pointing this out. But today is the 240th birthday of the Marines. And I'm not calling out the Marines who got up here and didn't mention that it was the 240th birthday. However, when I said to one of my Marine friends that I was going to suggest that we sing Happy Birthday, because I thought it'd be cute, sing Happy Birthday to the Marines, I was forcibly reminded that the Marines are not cute. And that there would be physical consequences to that decision. So I'm not going to do that. What I am going to do is we're going to show you a clip of 6 certified projects. And what I would ask is that after you leave this and you have that 20 minutes of feeling inspired before you get on the phone with your agent or manager or studio executive or whatever, and then you come back to reality of the fact that you've chosen a horrible lifestyle. In those 20 minutes, I want you to think about that project that matters to you that you're working on right now. And I want you to think about how much pain and agony and suffering you go through to bring that to life. We're in a business of giving birth. We come up with an idea, there's an inception, you die to get it together, and you put it out there, and then it, gets judged by everybody on Instagram, and, your career suffers. When you think about that, think about this. When you go out and you put all that time and effort, who do you want on your team when you do that? Who do you want to have your back? Who's got your six? Because at the end of the day, you're only as good as the people who are standing next to you. You're only as good as the man or woman that's in the pile of shit with you in the middle of Afghanistan. And at the end of the day, think about the quality of what you create. The passion you have, the commitment you have, it's born out of what is the team. We're an incredible society that in so many ways is based on the fact that we are a volunteer country. We volunteer more than any other country for charities, for the military, etc. How do you reward volunteerism? How do you reward commitment? And how does it then reward you? What you put in is what you get back. Veterans, they put in. The question is whether or not are you. Check out this video. Thank you.